All right, in order to factor this quadratic, what we first look for is a GCF. Is there a number that goes into all three pieces? And what you'll notice here is 3. 3 is your greatest common factor. So we now have to think about what are the pieces that are left over. Well, 3 times what gives you 3x squared? That would be 3x squared. 3 times what gives you negative 15x? Well, that would be negative 5x. And 3 times what gives you positive 18? That would be 6. All right, so now we could be done, but what I notice is this might factor. Let's do that x thing. 6 on top, negative 5 on bottom. What two numbers multiply to get positive 6 and add to get negative 5? Now be careful here, you could mess this up. This is actually negative 3 and negative 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6, and negative 3 plus negative 2 is negative 5. So what I now have is 3, and I have my x minus 3 and my x minus 2. That right there is factored form of this. So again, always watch out for a GCF and then see if you can factor this. A lot of times you can, but not always. It all depends. And if I did the box or FOIL this and then multiplied the 3 after that, I'd get back to that right there. In order to factor this one, we look for a GCF. And really, there is no GCF. But see this negative on the x squared? I never like to factor when there's a negative on the x squared. So I actually want to pull a GCF of a negative 1 out. That is actually kind of tricky, but you need to watch out for that. So I'm going to pull a negative 1 out. That will leave me 9x squared minus 15x plus 4. Okay, now I want to factor that right there. In order to factor that right there, I need to do my x. Now, it's a little bit harder on this one because you have a number in front. It's not just going to be 4 on top, it's going to be 9 times 4. And 9 times 4 is 36. So 36 is now the top. All right, and this negative 15 is going to be the bottom. So we're thinking now of two numbers that multiply to get 36 and add to get negative 15. Again, when there's a number in front, you have to multiply it by the back piece to get the top. And again, just a reminder, you cannot have a negative there. It really messes things up. So let's just pull out a negative 1. It makes it more complicated. So pull a negative 1. I just think it makes it easier. Okay, next. So what two numbers multiply to get 36 and add to get negative 15? Well, to me, it looks like negative 12 times negative 3. That would look like what it looks like. That doesn't make any sense how I said that, but that looks like it would work. So what I now have is I leave my negative 1 out front. And what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to take the 9x squared still and the 4. Okay, I took the 9x squared and the 4, left the negative 1 out here. Now I'm going to break up negative 15x as negative 12x and negative 3x. So that's going to be negative 12x minus 3x. And there's the plus 4. All right, so again, I rewrote this, but I changed this piece to be these two pieces that I found right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a GCF out of these two and a GCF out of these two and watch what happens. So I'm going to leave the negative 1 out front. When I pull a GCF out of these two, what goes into those two? It looks like a 3x, and what I'm left with would be 3x minus 4. All right. Next, I'm going to pull a GCF out of these two. All right, and what I notice is there really is no GCF, but there is a negative 1. And there's a reason why I'm going to pull a negative 1 out. So I'm going to pull a negative 1 out. And when I do that, I'm left with 3x minus 4. Okay, and close the parenthesis on the first piece. So when I pull a 3x out of both these, I'm left with 3x minus 4. And when I pull a negative 1 out of both these, negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x, and negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. And here's the key. What I want is I want both of these to be the same. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, can I, by making this in the middle and pulling out a GCF for both pieces, can I make it so these two pieces are the same? And when they are the same, you can do one last step. So I keep the negative 1 in front. All right, and then what I now have is I now have a 3x minus 4 I can pull out. And then this is what's left over when I pull a 3x minus 4 out. I'm left with a 3x minus 1. So what I now have is a negative 1, 3x minus 4, 3x minus 1, and that is factored form. If I were to FOIL or box this, I'd go back to the original. Let's recap this one. It's the hardest of them. First of all, if there is a negative, it's helpful to pull it out. If there's no other GCF, or even if there's a GCF, always pull out a negative. You never want a negative x squared, just weird. Then you factor this, multiply front and back, bring that to the bottom. What two numbers multiply to get that and add to get this? These two pieces then become the inside, replacing the negative 15x. You pull a GCF out of this and a GCF out of this. That's this and that. Then you pull this GCF out, meaning it's a common piece, put it out front, and these two pieces are what's left over. And the negative 1 stays, and these are your two factors when you factor this right